Dun, 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 dun. Hey, what's up, Buck Fam listeners? Thank you for joining in, and hello again. Today we are getting into episode 2 of our favorite Simply Dynamo. Now, we're going to take this easy. We're going to take some time. I know Dynamo can be a little bit daunting, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. So, for episode 2, we're going to be focusing completely on the written text, otherwise known in Dynamo as strings. So, we are going to take this in small strides. Now, I'm going to be diving us into what I call the Dynamo Funhouse. We are going to be looking in there for some help on how to edit, change, and replace text using Dynamo. So let's dig into it. This week, I'm not going to forget, I'm not going to place my giant face on the corner of the screen to block out half of the stuff that we need to see. Corrected. I have fixed that. So tune in. Here we go. Let's go. Demo screen blank. Whoa. Okay, here we go. Okay, Dynamo. Fantastic. Now, if you will see here, I am going to drag this little screen over and homework. Yes, we have some homework. We are going to be going through each of these and showing how we can utilize strings inside of Dynamo to be able to edit existing text and replace it back in the file. So you'll see a lot of crazy stuff here. I purposely spelled some things wrong. I've purposely made some things all wacky here so that we can learn this easily. Okay, so moving forward. In Dynamo, on the left-hand side in your library, you are going to see a drop-down for string. That drop-down has three other drop-downs. One for generate, which means that it's going to generate a string in some fashion using existing strings. Okay. And from there, we also have inspect, which is going to look into strings and identify the information that we can utilize to edit other things. We're going to look at modify, where we can actually modify an existing string by replacing, removing, shifting things over, changing text to lower or upper, all kinds of fun things there that we can play around with. Okay, so here we go. Now I have this little fun and fancy file. I call this my DD strings type thing. So DD strings and DD strings 2. Let's look at DD strings 2. I don't even remember what this is. Open. Open. Yeah, I think this is the blank one. Look at that. Empty. Way to start it off, Dennis. All right, let's open this up. Must have deleted everything. Here we go. Sorry, I'm busy. Okay, let's have a look here. We've got our strings. And notice how I've got this all nice and color-coded. Wow, I am going to set myself to quit. There we go. Fan. Awesome. I know, everybody just wants to talk to me. This is awesome. Okay, here we go. So, basic strings. Whoop. These are the two ways that we can input strings inside of Dynamo for the beginners. This is the best way to go about it. First one is using the string node. The string node, you literally just right-click on your screen, and this is a little shortcut for those of you who are new to Dynamo. Right-click on the screen and type in string. And when you click on string, pop, a node pops up with little output. In that string, you can type whatever you want. Yeah, dad jokes never ends. Okay, here we go. So this little string you can take and place into certain other inputs and utilize it for prefixes, suffixes. You can use it for parameter naming, all that kind of stuff. So that is one way to do it. The other way to do it is in a code block. Now, code blocks are extremely useful. And why I say that is because it takes care of multiple different things. It's not just text. You can use it for numbers. You can use it for formulas. You can use it to generate an input. You can use it to generate all kinds of fun stuff. So to activate a code block, one of the best things about it is you just double click on your open screen. Boom, code block. Boom, code block. Code block, code block. Okay, I'm getting a little crazy. I do love my code blocks though. Okay, so delete, delete, delete. We don't need all those. Anyway, to input a string into a code block, what you need to do is put a quotation mark and then type in whatever that string is that you want. Once you're done, usually the first line will add a semicolon at the end if you just click off of it. However, get into the habit of actually typing in the semicolon at the side, because that tells you that this line of information is finished and it wants you to generate an input or an output from the side. Okay? So that is very important. Now, let's talk a little more about strings. If you were to guess, if I was to type in the word for, what would you say is the index of R? And by index, what number is that letter in that word? Now, the way we would typically think about this is F would be represented as the first letter, O would be the second, U would be the third, and R would be the fourth. Oh, not the case. In programming language, all your numbers start from 0. So when you're talking about integers, or when you're talking about lists or anything like that, when you're in a programming language, everything starts at 0. So when you're looking at the letters inside of a string, or the indexes of those letters, you're going to refer to F as 0, 1, 2, 3. So if I want to edit the fourth letter in this word, I'm actually editing the index of 3. So this is just something to keep in mind. As we work through this, it'll become very important. Also, when you look at something like this code block that has a quotation marks, and then in here it has a space. Well, guess what? A space is a character. So do not forget that when you're calculating length, or if you're looking for things inside of a string, spaces are also included, which is very important. If you're typing a string and then you accidentally put a space at the end, well, that now has 5 characters in it. Okay? So let's get rid of that little space off the end. This one is just going to stay there. And then that one we now have as a word that we can use in our project. Okay. So 2 ways to input strings. You can rename these if you want. It's string or code block. I prefer code blocks because they're more convenient. However, one thing to note with a code block, if I right click on this, take notice what's happening here. Right now, I do not see an is input command. That's kind of important, especially if we want to use an input such as a string. But if I right click on string, I can dedicate this as an input for my project. And that's important because when we go to create scripts for Dynamo Play, which we will learn about soon enough, Dynamo Player looks into these nodes to find out if it has an input added to it. Okay, so Dynamo Play will not show this string as an editable line unless it's marked as an input. So be careful when you're choosing code blocks and choosing nodes inside your project. Make sure that the ones that you need to modify your script inside Dynamo Player can see this as an input. Okay, moving on. More with strings. Let's have a look at this code block. When we're dealing with code blocks, we can use all different kinds of functions and capabilities when it comes to, formulas and whatnot. You can even add strings together. And what I mean by that is, as long as you separate these by a plus symbol, you can actually combine words. Now, why would I do that? Who knows? This is just for the purpose of education. I would just literally type that out. But to show you, if I'm generating, so let's say here, I got this word, this is crazy, okay? If I was to type in or hit run right now, you would notice that the text down below here, when I hover over this node and click this pin icon, is showing all of these words crammed together. Okay, and that's because I have no separators right now. But it is taking the word this between quotation marks, is between quotation marks, and crazy between quotation marks, and it's mashing them together into this like amazing little mashed potato mix. All right, so if we do want to add separators in, just make sure to put them after the word. And then you can hit run at the bottom again, and it will regenerate it, showing you what the string has created. Cool, right? I know, it's awesome. All right, so the other way to do this is concatenating. So there is a concatenate node that we looked at earlier, and there's also a string join node. So it's two different versions of this. We're going to go through both, okay? So let's say I have some lists. Now we are not getting into list management yet. That'll be our next class. We'll be learning about list management. However, there is a node called list create in your Dynamo. Okay? This list allows you to add as many items as you want and remove as many items as you want to generate a list of anything. So in this case, we're creating a list of strings. So if you take a look here, we have this is crazy, all as separate words here. And I can take, we'll just separate this over here. It's selecting as a group, go away. Okay, I'm actually going to ungroup this just so that we can see this. So we have a list here. Okay, that list, when I hit run, is generating 3 words, all separated from each other. This is crazy. So if I go to my generate and click on concat, I can take this and I can add that in. Watch what happens. It combines them all as one word. Pretty cool, right? So I just took a list of random ones. Now this is great. Let's say I had 30 words coming out of each of these strings. And it would actually go through and combine all those separate words together to create multiple sentences for us. Pretty neat. We'll get there. We'll get there. Anyway, so concatenation is the combination of words in a simple form. Now, joining of strings is a little bit different. If you'll notice, this is crazy is all crammed together. Well, a string join is a slightly different view on this. Now, we can get crazy with this. So let's say I have a separator. And this separator, which you can't see, is there's actually a little space here. So I'm using string. Now, I'm going to use a code block just for the purpose of using a code block. Same way, I would use my quotation mark, space, quotation mark, and then my semicolon. So that right there is telling me that this little thing here is going to be my separator for these pieces of text. So if I plug that into separator right now, okay, I have my list coming out of here, these words, this is crazy. I have my list coming out below of this is more crazy than. So if I hit the run right now, notice that it's actually taken both of those pieces of text at the same time, and it's added in the separators for all of them. And I've created myself kind of like a funky paragraph. And then what I can do after that is, let's say I do have these 2 separate strings here, and they're separated all with their little separators, which are the spaces. Then I can take that and I can mark it into an array. So you see how it just took that string and it put it into an array? So that's where the benefit of string from array is. It can take a list of strings and then it can array them side by side. So yes, I have a separator that is a comma there. It's just how I have things going. So anyway, that is fun. This is how we work with it. So keep in mind that there are lots of fun things that we can do with concatenation. This comes important when we start dealing with prefixes and suffixes, because we can concat a prefix to an existing sheet name or a prefix to a word, or however we want to deal with it. So let's start getting into how we deal with with some of the other string functions, like renaming, switching out numbers, stuff like that. So moving this all up at the top. On the left-hand side, we have a bunch of string edits that we can do in our project. As you remember from our last class, there's all different types of selection techniques that we can use to grab some things from our project. So let's start working one by one through the different string functions. First one is capitalization. We covered this in a basic format in our last class. So again, as a refresher, we go to select model element, let's say. Now that's if we want to do one. So we're going to start with one first. And then I am going to go to get text. So it should be, yeah, text note here. So select, click, plug my element into text note and hit run. Okay, so it's telling me what that whole string is. I've got my text note text. It's saying I am a fancy string that needs to be capitalized. All right, so we have that text. That text can now be run through a series of different things. Now, there are two ways to do capitalization inside of Dynamo for strings. One of them is to do to upper. One of them is if you don't want to capitalize, you want to go in the reverse, you can go to lower. However, there is another one that says change case, which allows you to do both intermittently. So let's say I want change case. I take the string value that I have here, and then I can create, if I hover over that upper, remember the language we talked about last week? And if you want, you can pause it here to have a look. This is the programming language that we looked at last week. So string is text, double is number, integer is whole number, variables, which we did not talk about yet. We're going to talk about when we get to lists, is the either a singular variable or multiple variables. Boolean, which can be your true, false, yes, no, on, off. And then points, vectors, curve, and geometry, which we'll get into. Okay, so for now, what we're looking for is a Boolean, because when I hover over that text in the corner and say where it says upper, you'll see at the bottom left it says bool. So it is looking for a Boolean. So we are going to right click and type in Boolean. And I'm going to plug that in there. So I'm going to drop this little menu down here and pin it so that I can see what's happening. And then I'm just going to hit run. And you'll see here that it is lowercase everything because I have set my Boolean to false. Now, when you're creating these scripts, you have to be very descriptive to the individuals who are using it. So let's say I was marking this as an input. I would rename this, and then in a comma setup here, I would say upper equals true, comma, lower equals false. That way, when that input actually gets dropped into Dynamo Play, the user who's about to utilize this script will make sure that, oh, yes, I have to have it set to true if I want to increase that text to be capitalized. So when I hit run here, you'll notice that it's all capitalized. However, there is one step that's really important. You'll notice that we still have not capitalized the information that's inside of Revit. And that is because we need to set the text inside of Revit. So if we go to set text, we can take the value. If I hover over value, you notice it's looking for a string, okay? So I'm taking the string and then the actual text note. So always reverse engineer yourself here. Go back a little bit and look at what we have. So the input to this one says text note. So you know that that element that you have selected at the beginning is the actual text note from Revit. So we want to take that element all the way from the beginning and plug it into text note. So we have the element, which is the text note. We have the altered value, which can now be plugged into the value. And we hit run. And there we go. We've got ourselves a capitalized word. Pretty awesome. Okay, so I need to do that for the other three, or for the other two. I should have thought that through, eh? All right, so what can we do? Remember in our last class, we had a few other options available to us. Now, we can do select model elements, which in many cases you may want to do. So the plural version of this, we're literally taking that, plugging it into the same values that we have, and we're getting rid of the singular version of that. You click on the select button within Dynamo, select all of those strings, and you'll see that there are element IDs for 1, 2, 3 objects. Okay? And then we just go ahead and hit run, and it'll capitalize all of those. But then we have all these words down here. You know, this is kind of a problem because we should be capitalizing all of the stuff in this file. So again, instead of using select model elements, if I delete that, we can go to element types, click on element types, go down to text note, not text note type, text note, and then all elements of type. So why do we need all elements of type? Well, element types is just calling out essentially a category. So text notes. It is saying that we are selecting all of the text notes, or the text note types in the project. Right now it doesn't know what to do. So it has text note types, but it's not actually physically selecting elements. All it's doing is saying, okay, let's look at element types. This, all elements of type, is saying, okay, let's grab all the elements of that type in the project. So all of the placed instances of text note types in the project. That is currently what it's doing. And we are not filtering this list. I want to do a blanket, complete change for all text note types in our entire project. So I'm going to take those, plug it into text note. I'm also going to plug that all the way to the end to set as well. So here we go, run, and then boom. It is taking all of that text and doing it at once. Yeah, sure, ungroup it. I'm not in a worry of grouping things right now. Yeah, there's a bunch of things that are all crazy. But let's just say for the purpose of how I had this all set up nicely, I want to go back and undo this. Do not click the undo button inside of Dynamo. That undoes the work that you've been doing inside of Dynamo. The cool thing about working with this in Revit is when you run a command inside of Dynamo, it is actually a command that has been run in Revit. It is just like any other command. So if I were to hit the drop down beside the undo button here, take a look at this. Well, at the top left of our screen, you'll see Dynamo script as a command. Well, I can just undo that. And it takes me right back to where I started. Sweet. Awesome. Okay, so there's some interesting things we can do here. Now, there are some things like replacing that we're going to get into in a second here. There is also inserting something at a specific location. So you have to use your best judgment about when to use any of these. And we're just going to go through these one by one, and you're more than welcome to try them on your own. So first thing, when I look at this, I see a number. Problem is when I select it, it is actually a text note. So when I bring this in and try to use it as a number inside of Dynamo, Dynamo will say, no, it's not happening. That is not a number. That is a text with number characters in it, but it is not an actual number. I know that can be confusing to some, but trust me, this is not a battle you want to get involved in. So I'm going to delete a bunch of things here. I'm going to leave my text notes and my string changes here, mainly our text note text. Okay, we have, get rid of that. And I'm going to go back to the roots here. I'm going to go to select model element. Okay, so here we go. We got select model element. I'm going to click on select model element, click on that object. Okay. And then I can take this and I can go to string from object. So then I'm taking that element here. Again, we need to acquire the information from that text note. Run. Plug that in. So we can do string from object. Sorry, backwards. We gotta go the other way around. So we gotta go number. And you'll see an option here called to number. So string to number. So we take the string and plug it into number. So there's the vice versa. So if I have a number, let's just say 452. Notice how it's blue in my code block. I haven't put quotations around it. If I type in 452 in quotations, notice how it's not colored anymore. The reason why is because blue is representative of a color or of a number. Okay? That's an actual number in programming language. If it's within quotation marks, it is now considered a word or a string, piece of text. So that's why when we're looking at things inside of Dynamo, we have to convert them to their proper format in order to move them forward. Okay, so we have our string to number and we'd hit run. So you'll see here when I run it, the difference between the two. So we have a text note string and we have a string to number. So the way they format themselves is right, it's 0. If I was to put that as 0.15427, it would actually convert that to 0.142 to show as a number. Okay, so conversion. That way I know how to do that. So that we have now turned that into a number in Dynamo. Okay, so we have another crazy thing here. These are words, but this is a box that has some extra space at the end. What happens if our entire project and we have all these bordered texts in our project, or not even just bordered text. We have, I don't know if you've ever seen or worked in a Revit file where you have a piece of text that's sitting over the edge of your title block. And when you go to print, the title box shifts on you because you're printing to center and everything goes wacky. And that's all because of one dirty little text that's sticking out the end. Well, we have this ability to clear white space away from text, which is pretty awesome. So again, you can look for it, you can search it. Let's just go to the string drop down here. We can go to modify, and you'll see that we have some abilities here to trim leading white space and trim trailing white space. So if we really wanted to, we can do this for the whole project. But if I say trim trailing white space, select model element, and plug it into there. And again, I'm just getting rid of the string to number here. We've already done that. I'll be cleaning up as I go just to show you how this works. Well, hit run. So it didn't do it for me. What step did I miss? I forgot to get the information out of the text. Wow, look at you go, Dennis. We need our text information. Text note. Very important. Run. So remember, get, fill, set. Remember that from the first lesson. So we get the information first, which is the actual text note. And you'll see that we have all kinds of end space at the end. Trim trailing white space. You'll see that it is now shortened down to something more manageable. And if you want to check the length of text, all you have to do is type in length. And you'll see that there's a string length. And I'm going to copy this twice just so you can see the difference between the two. So you'll see the string from the original is 49 characters, and then the string with the trimmed space at the end has 15. Okay, Awesome. Okay, so next one, combining words. We already talked about concatenation, so if we want to combine these words, we can do so. You'll notice that there are no spaces in these words. So we might want to use something called string join. Does that sound about right? String join. All right. So let's go to select model elements. Dun, 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 dun. We can select all these. We have them. And then text note. Plug that in there. And you'll notice that when I hover down, remember what I said about everything starts at 0. Well, that the same goes for our lists inside of Dynamo. You see 0, 1, 2. It always starts at 0. So I'm asking politely for Dynamo to combine these words for me. So I can go to join. Instead of concat, I'm going to use join. Okay? I'm going to define a separator. Now in this case, I'm going to put an underscore just to be different, because maybe I want to use this as a file name. Maybe I don't want to have spaces in there because they're evil. Who knows? It's up to you. In this case, I am going to do so because it looks like a very disgruntled face right now. Look at that. 2 eyes. Okay. Anyway, so we have the separator and we have the strings that are going into it. And we hit run. And watch what happens. Combine me, please. It's all in one word. Yay. Fantastic. It's pretty cool, huh? Anyway, there are lots of fun things that you can do with this stuff. We can combine it, we can take it, and we can move it back in. Okay, so removing items from a string. So let's say select, remove. I'm going to get rid of this information here. You feel free to pause these if you want to get information out of it. It's up to you. So removing. So if I go back down to my string, modify, same sort of thing, remove. So I can remove items at index. I can remove items at the end or beginning. So there are some things that you can do to take away. If I wanted to say type in remove, you'll see that I have remove items at index, which is for list management, which we'll get into. That allows us to do some funky things. The list management has some more functionality where I can drop items from the beginning or end, which is super handy. So there is a difference between drop and remove. Drop is meant for lists. Remove is meant for strings. Okay, so removing the last item. How do we do this? Well, this will be fun. Well, this is where length comes into play. Okay, so make sure I don't have anything selected. Length. Okay. There's 2 ways we can do this. One, if you know the exact word that you want to remove, you can use the replace functionality, which we're going to get to shortly. Or if you want to keep a certain number of digits for this text and be able to erase the rest, is also a way that you can go about it. So string length. I'm also going to get my text note. Elements, text note, we've got the string. So before that string, I am also going to plug into string length. So we have ourselves a length. There are 21 characters in here. So item has 4 characters. So I know that I want to take away the last few items in there. I want the word item to be gone. Okay? So I have to be careful here. What happens if I add an additional space in here? Well, I need this script to be able to adapt to that change. So I have a length, which is in a number value. I can type in minus. This is a math node. These math nodes are these operators, as we call them. An operator node allows us to make modifications to certain formulas within Dynamo. This comes in really handy when we want to do things like this. And what the reason why I'm putting this in here is I can take the length, which is my x, and subtract it by a certain number. So I'm going to type in, I can either type in a number or I can use a code block. So let's go number. Let's just say here. And I want it to remove 4 items from whatever this number is. So 4. Okay. So my start index is where in this string is the actual removal of these items going to start. Well, what do I want to remove? It says remove the last item, but there's actually a space between last and item. So I actually want to remove the last 5 characters. Okay, so I'm going to plug that into here. I'm going to hit run, and you'll see that I have now generated from that string length 21 down to 16. Yay, math! All right, we're programming. Look at us go. Okay, so we have 2 numbers here that are useful to us. First, we're going to take the string that we have, boop, and we're going to plug it into string because that's where we want to remove the certain items. Next, the start index. That is where the removal is going to start. So we are telling it to start 16 over, boop, to start index. And then we are telling it to remove 5 items from the end. So I know these little blocks are confusing. So let's move that all the way over here just so it's not as confusing. We have our number, which is down here, our start length. Let's clean things up here so we can see where those are going. So we have our string length. We are removing 5 characters from that string. So we hit run, and what you'll see is it says remove the last. Cool, right? Well, if we want to finish it off, we can go to set text, take the new value and the text note from the beginning, and hit run. Oh, something else is blocking me here. We have the text note, run. I'm not going crazy here, right? Run. Okay, there, it's gone. So now it says remove the last. So if I undo this, let's say I add in a whole bunch of text and I do the same thing. I hit run. It is only getting rid of the last number because it's an adaptable situation. We are using the string length, which is constantly changing, to be able to predetermine that I always want to remove the last 5 elements or the 5 characters. No matter what happens to that string and how long it gets, the value or the formula that we've put in is made sure that it's flexible enough to understand that. Whereas before, if I just said, like, typed in an actual length value and counted every single text, that's not how programming should work. It should be adaptive. It should be flexible. Okay, so again, if you want to look at this, just to back up, we took an element, which was a text. We grabbed that text. We counted the number of characters within that text. We subtracted it by a number that we wanted to remove. And then we told it to remove it. And then we set it back to the element inside of it. So again, feel free if you want to pause this to take a look at how the script is put together. I'm moving on. Okay, continuing here. So how many characters do you think I contain? Well, we just learned how to do that. Super awesome, right? Well, we can go to select, click on that object, select, get rid of that object. Okay, and hit run. And you'll see, it tells me right there, 44, yay, awesome. Well, if I wanted to get really creative here, I can actually insert that 44 to the end with a number and like put it in brackets or something. Again, just playing around with these concepts. Okay, moving down, replacing. Now, I had mentioned before there's that remove the last item one. And I had said that if we want, we can have it avoid certain words. Now, you'll laugh at this. We had a project in the past where we had the word, and again, these things happen. So every single suite in the building was spelt. Yes, it was spelt sweet. SWEET. Hundreds of views, hundreds of sheets, all with the wrong, incorrect spelling, and it got a little bit crazy. So, how do we fix that for a whole project? Because the find replace function inside of Revit, well, sadly, it only works for text notes. So, we have the ability to reach into every element that has available text editing function and be able to change it according to a parameter. So that is why Dynamo is awesome, because we have more creative abilities. So when we have something like that, take a look at this one here where it says, could you replace this yucky word with a yummy word? Well, easy enough to do. Same thing, select model elements, and I'm going to delete all this stuff at the end except for text note text and set text. I'm going to keep those because I keep deleting them. It causes time. Okay, so I'm going to say select model elements and select that item. And then I am going to type in replace. And you'll see for replace, for string, you'll notice there's a few different types of replace. You'll get used to hunting for nodes over time. So I click on replace. And then in here, I can grab my string. However, we got one little thing here. I want it to search for a specific word. So I'm going to say yucky. And I want to replace it with the word. Now, this is the cool part about code blocks. Enter. I can put in more than one value into one code block. And that doesn't have to be words. It can be numbers. It can be Booleans. Like if I wanted to type a Boolean and call it true, you'll notice it's purple because it's an action item that is a true or false. But if I put in another text here and say yummy, well, there we go. That's pretty easy. Plug my string into value in my text note, and then boom. Oh no, I did the wrong text note. Okay, so that's a fault of my own. Undo. Boy, can't believe I did that. All right, so model elements, select that word. All right. This one here, you know what I'm going to do? Sometimes if you get some weird things happening, freeze your nodes down the line and hit run. And you'll see like something get updated. You can unfreeze it. Let's say I don't want to replace anything yet. I just want to do that. And I want to run and I want to test it to make sure the right words are coming through here. You can do that. So again, I can unfreeze and then I can run this whole script again. And then there you go. Notice how it replaced that yucky word with a yummy word. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Allows us to do some things very interesting. Same with adding items at an index. So you'll see here that it wants to insert the word missing into this file. Well, but before I do, remember I had suggested before that we have that remove the last item? Well, this is where you can do something tricky like this, where I can say remove the last item, and I want to replace item with nothing. And it's 2 quotation marks with nothing in between it, okay? And I just go and I hit say run, and then it removes it. So if you're looking to remove a specific word throughout the project, like if you want to be really evil and tell it to find the word the and replace it with something koopy or something crazy, let me know. Please don't play pranks on your teammates. They don't like that during works. Okay. Alrighty. So again, just a few other things that we can look at here. So let's say we need to put a certain bit of information in here. Now, in brackets, just to cheat, I put in the number of characters of where I had to insert this, just for the ease of use. But So when I say insert, you'll see that there is an insert node here, and it's under the modify area of strings. So I'm going to take a certain word. Now, I'm going to do this smart. I'm going to take a select model element node. Okay. So I have this select model element node, and I have my select model elements node up there. So I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to use 2 of these just because I only want 1. So let's go in here, text note test. I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to leave that there. I also have my select model element, which is going to be for, come on, that one. This one for that one. Okay, so I have my text note string. I have my other element down below, and I also have my insert. Okay, so I have my string. Boom, this one. Awesome. But I need an index number. I need a length. I need something to work with. Well, I can do a few different things. I can use my length function like I did before. Or in this case, I'm feeling a little lazy. Why not I just do this? I'm just going to type in 13. Index. So, and this element, this text note right here is the one I want to insert. So I now have that information. I'm going to plug that into value and grab the text node over there and hit run. Poof! There we go. Pretty awesome. We're inserting words and stuff. Now this is very handy. Very, very, very handy. Now if you want to add suffixes or prefixes to entire lists of text, this comes in very handy for doing so. So you can take an entire list, which we'll be learning about in our next class, is about list management. How to take, say for instance, the word mech. Like you want your drawings to say mechanical at the front of it with a hyphen. Well, you can take all the text notes or all the sheets in a project and you can prefix them with mech or with your company name or something like that. And then you can send it back into your project with an edit. Okay. All right, and then the last thing here is Booleans. So working with Booleans or identifying if words meet your certain conditions is very important. So identifying whether certain things are true or false can come in very handy. So if I look here, it's asking, do I have the true word true in this true string? So what we're going to do is string If we look in, we've got generate, there's concat, join, string from array, and string from object. We looked at those. Down here, we have inspect. It is asking, are there certain items of this in the project? Does a project contain something? Are there words that end with all this? So, very important, contains. So, string contains is what we're looking for. You're going to use this one quite frequently. This helps you filter down lists of certain objects according to their name or according to their string altogether. So if I go to select model element, select that word, I'm going to add a Boolean. Ugh, hate when it does that. Just right click on the screen, Boolean. Because if I hover over ignore case here down at the bottom, which is telling me, do I want to ignore the upper or lower case or the case sensitivity of a word? In this case, I'm going to say false. I want it to actually identify the upper or lower case rules that this is following. So I have my text note. I have my string. And I want it to search for true. So when I hit run, it is telling me that there are in fact a true condition that's being met here. The word true does exist in this string, and it is in fact this word. What happens if I take away that E? Tray. and I say run. Run. Come on. False. Okay, yeah, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. All right, so notice how it's saying false because the actual spelling verbatim of true is not there. We have a lowercase true. We have a true that has two different letters that are in upper or lowercase. So if I was to switch this Boolean to true, which would say, yes, please ignore case for that word or that string, then it will go in and find the instances of true, and it will in fact say that. So why is this important? Well, this helps us filter out items in a list to be able to use for the future. Okay? Because if I was to take select model elements, here, select, and take all these words. And from those elements, I'd put them into text notes. And now I'm going to run that same function. Well, when I run, take a note, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of text that I have selected. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because there are 7, but it starts from 0. And out of all those, only one of these actually meet the conditions that the fact that the word true is in that sentence. So from there, and this is just an extra added treat for this lesson. I don't expect you to remember this, but they have this cool little function called a filter by Boolean mask. So lots of crazy jargon there that we're not really looking at. So filtering by a Boolean mask just means like it's filtering by a rule. So our Boolean mask, or our rule, is that anything that follows the condition of true will be placed into the in folder. Anything that follows the rule of false will be placed into the out. So if I take my list of text here and my Boolean mask, so notice how it's bool mask, that's the way that you can think about this to remember it. I can take my Boolean and my mask and hit run. And when I hover over this list here, you'll see that the in list has the correct value and the out list has their own. Pretty cool, right? Well, if I wanted to take the actual elements back here, instead of the text note strings, you would see that it's actually using that same filtering function because it's got those trues all set up a certain way. And it's actually taking the element itself. So if I was to have my view here and click on the green button beside this text note, notice it takes me right to the string that has the word true in it. Okay, that's enough for now. This was simply Dynamo for Buck Fim. There's a lot of stuff to be learned here. Next week we'll be looking at lists and list management so that we can get into the dirty grind of Dynamo and learn how we can do some really fun stuff. So stay tuned. The lessons are only going to get better. You know, keep on working away as hard as you can. Learn the stuff. The best way to do it is to jump in and do your thing. This has been Dennis Dixon on Buck Fim and Simply Dynamo. And keep tuned. We've still got 6 more lessons to go. Thank you. Have a good one. Take care. Dun, 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 dun.